Good evening. Design Review Board 2 public meeting of December 11, 2008 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker's cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on a specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by calling our DRB hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within either 7 or 15 calendar days of the DRB date, depending on the application. The case planner will announce the length of the appeal period after each case. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion, and this will be roll call. Mr. Carter.
Present.
Ms. Friedman.
Here.
Mr. Garagos. Absent. Mr. Malikian.
Here.
Mr. Zarifian.
Here.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Report regarding posting the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on December 4th, 2008. Oral communications. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on an item not a part of this agenda? No, everyone wishes to speak on one of the two items. Okay. Do you have any cards by any chance, Mr. Malikian?
No, we don't have any cards.
All right. No oral communications review calendar. We have nothing on consent. We have no staff announcements at this point, and we can begin with the regular business.
Okay. Are we ready?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So 2 PDR 2008-050A was continued. 1588 Glenmont Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. As mentioned, the next case number is 2 PDR 2008-050A, located at 1588 Glenmont. This case was continued from November 6th of 2008 due to concerns that the board had that were raised by the neighbors.
Okay.
And I will quickly go over the project description. The description of the project is to legalize the 464 square foot breezeway between the garage and the house to be enclosed into family room, as well as to enclose the 378 square foot patio. From the last time, there were concerns raised about the work that had been done without permits, and it was mentioned that most of the back of the house, which would be facing the front of the lot, were demolished, and board asked us to visit the site, take some photographs, and also do a 50% calculation to see if they have passed that 50% rule or not. I visited the site, and as you can see, the pictures are posted right directly behind you, and took some pictures. From what I saw, the demolition that took place was mainly the patio that had been converted originally, and they had demoed the wall because they wanted to move it up another 18 inches, and that shows on the newly provided floor plan.
18 inches or?
I believe it's 18. I may be wrong on that, but it is fairly minimal compared to the overall size square footage of the converted patio, because the square footage that will be added on top of that would be only 65 square foot. So it is.
I see.
That was the reason. Apparently, that's the reason why it was demoed, and also the roof above that area was demoed. Calculation is provided to be 12% of the demolished exterior wall and the roof area, and photographs are also provided. This is a fairly strange lot because it is the back of the house is facing the front, and the front of the house is facing the private driveway approaching the house. Applicant, actually, I spoke with the applicant earlier, and they mentioned something about a design-related that they were proposing maybe to keep the existing stone that they have added to the breezeway, the enclosed breezeway, sorry, and possibly continue it at the front facade. And I told them they can bring it up to your attention, and something that is not as part of the proposal or the scope of work, but it's something that may come up later.
So, I wasn't here. Hello, Mr. Garris?
No.
Okay. I wasn't here last time, so it was continued. Apparently, there were some discussions here because of the question that it was demolished, most of the building was demolished or so forth. I actually drove up and I was around there, and I wasn't able to even find it, and I was lucky enough that Mr. Gregorian was there and kind of took me around and showed me so it was very difficult for me to find the building, so I want to thank you for giving me the tour of the building. So if you can just briefly explain to me what happened and the discussion, and now that we're here, if you can.
The initial proposal was, at least that's what we were presented, to legalize the enclosing of that breezeway and enclosing of the covered patio, which would add up to be about, it's about 840 square foot. So that was the regional proposal. And when the project was presented by the applicant, neighbor came up to the podium and mentioned that most of the house is demoed and it's only blue top at the back, and just 2 walls are standing, and that was surprising to all of us, because when I visited the site, I only was able to see the front of the house. So I revisited the site, and as I mentioned, looked at the project because board felt that they may be passing the 50% rule, and we want to know exactly what's going on before we can consider the project.
All right. Everyone had a chance to visit the house and look at the back?
I do have a question. I actually couldn't look at I wasn't able to walk behind it. I have 2 questions.
Yes.
The first question is, are the windows that I'm seeing that are sort of those bay windows, is that what's proposed, that type of window for the entire house? Because I'm asking because of the staff comment about the windows. So I want to
You're
be sure
talking
I
the back of the
understand.
house?
Yes. Well, for all of the windows that we see.
For clarity, when we say back of the house is
The front of the lot.
front of the lot. Okay. so-
Which is
So
not,
I guess, maybe you can come up and clarify 2 things for me. First, what windows are proposed to stay, and which windows they're matching? And secondly, if you can show some photos of that stone facade so that I'm very clear that I know exactly what they're proposing.
okay.
If they're in the photographs, because I know some of that's existing.
Okay. So to start with the windows, the front of the house has vinyl windows. I could not find any permits for it. The back of the house has wood windows and French doors.
So
They're proposing to, because they have sort of maintained it, they're going to reuse it. According to them, they're going to reuse those French doors, wood French doors. But the front, they're not proposing any new windows. They're hoping to be able to keep those vinyl windows.
do you have photos that show?
Yes, I should have more photos here. And as far as the stone goes, I have a better picture of that, I believe. There's just so many greenery that it's hard to... That would be probably one of the best photographs of the stone that they have added. We recommended that they change that to brick initially to match, and applicant is probably going to request it when he gets a chance to speak to change the brick to stone.
And then these are the vinyl windows
Yes.
that are in the same picture?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, let's start I'm going to reopen because it was continued and there's no new findings, so generally when we continue and if the public session is closed, we would just continue on. So I'm going to reopen, so we have some new cards, and if there's anything new that we can, I can hear and my colleagues here. So Chris Gregorian?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of board. My name is Chris Gregorian. Mr. Nazarian already explained the situation, and the only thing that I have to add to this issue, that one of the reasons the enclosed patio been demolished, first of all, the height of the patio, it was a little bit lower than the 8 feet, so it wouldn't match the interior of the building. The second of all, we decided since the patio didn't have a foundation and the soil engineer came to the job site and saw that there's no foundation for that patio, enclosed patio, so new foundation need to be built. So we decided to push the patio, location of the enclosed patio another 18-inch, and based on that, the patio been demolished. And everybody thought since this is the back of the house, it's not a big issue, and the permit is going to get issued from building department, and the job is going to get done. Anyway, the patio supposed to get demolished in order to build a living room and extension of the kitchen and extension of the bedroom. So when they demolish it, they find out when we find out there's no foundation, it's been demolished, and the new foundation has already been dig for the soil engineer to take a look at it to see what's the condition of the soil. That's what happened to the patio, the reason it's been demolished. All the existing doors and windows, which is the wood doors and windows, it's what it shows on the drawing, and is matching with the existing backyard of the house, been saved and it's going to replace. Those are wood windows with the light dividers.
Replace or reused?
We're going to reuse them.
Okay.
The front of the house are facing to the driveway. Everybody, I guess, saw that. The window's been changed by the original owner, and it's a vinyl window. And it was a surprise for us that there's no permit for it, but we can add him to this permit and make it a part of the legalization as well. The proposal that we have today, and this is kind of new, we didn't have a chance to put them on a drawing, since the staff recommend they have a recommendation because of that stone. If it's okay with the board, we continue that stone veneer all the way to the entry door, and it will be a little bit bigger size of the stone veneer. It's a river rock type stone veneer, and continue to the entry door.
When you say entry door, meaning the one that you're indicating as a foyer?
Yes, actually that's the entry of the house.
That's the entry. So what you're saying is to continue the stone under the study window
Exactly.
and then just
Right.
wrapping it around?
All the way to so it will be a little bit bigger area. Right now it's a very small area, it's kind of tacky, so it will create a base and it will look much better. And this is not a big proposal, it's just something that it will look better in our opinion. If it's okay with the board, then
Okay.
make it a part of the condition, but we'll do it.
Again, I want to thank you for giving me the tour in the back, so I think it was really helpful. I wasn't able to see the building from the street nor from the private driveway, so being able to go around and come around, I think was really helpful to understand what's going on.
Can I add something else? The last time, I guess, Mr. Giragos has a question about the legality of the deck. And we searched through the permit section, and the deck is permitted. And I have a copy of the permitted deck.
Does it have a site plan on it?
Yes. There's two plans.
Any more?
Two different timing, 67 and 76. Twice.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
George Tomazian?
I'd rather just speak to him.
Okay. We have one more card. Is it Pamela?
My handwriting?
Yeah, Sellers? Is it?
Sellers, I could see it from here.
I'm the neighbor. I live at 1592 Glenmont. My husband was here last time.
1592. Are you right adjacent to the?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're just below it. And I came today, I just put my card in just in case there was something that I wanted to respond to. But my only concern is that, and my concern from the beginning was that if there was major work to be done, that it was permitted. And our concern was that the way that it was initially presented, it sounded as if the work had already been done, and when it had not been. So as long as the work that's going to be done is done with a permit, since we live right below it, and want to make sure everything is done according to Hoyle, we're okay.
Okay, thank you very much. George Tomasi? All right, then, if you don't have any more questions, then I'll close the session. You guys want to start, or do you want me to?
Well, you weren't here, but you had the benefit of walking around the house,
Okay.
which I don't think any of the rest of us had, so maybe you
Yeah.
can tell us what you saw
Well,
first.
first of all, I was a little bit confused why, being that it is less than 700 or 800 threshold that triggers, being that it's in the back. But Mr. Gregorian explained to me the technicality of why it's here, which is understandable, and this is exactly the view that I saw when I drove up, which is like the end of the deck that it's kind of...
And what was the technicality, that it was actually a front facade?
Because the section of the property, from my understanding, 20-foot wide is hitting the Glenmont down below right here. Technically, this becomes the front of the building, whereas it's actually the back of the building. So that's the technicality. I did walk through and understood that one of the reasons I went back was because of the question of the 50% and then the amount of remodel. There was nowhere near to be 50%. It was just a section of the back that it was taken out the deck, apparently, and they removed the facade, but the roof seemed like it was there. It was covered with a tarp. We walked around the side and actually stood right next to the gates, which is right adjacent to your property. And I couldn't see the extent of the work. So, having said that, they're literally pulling the facade out, and if they're maintaining the same look in the back, I'd rather have the same look, same windows to be carried as when you look at the facade, and obviously in the front, I like without dividers, obviously, but, in the front or the back of the building, that's how it is. I think it was done well, it's nice. And in the back, I really didn't see any major deal there, so I don't know what else to say.
Your point about the windows, are you saying that
Well, the way that it is the way I'm seeing it is, if I'm standing in the backyard, okay, and I'm looking at the building, I would rather see the same windows carry through. So if there are going to be an existing divided light windows on either end of the construction, I'd rather see that divided light to continue on the newly added piece. So that facade carries the same look, uniform, and not convert that or change that to what it's in the front. And when you stand in the front, it's all uniform. You see it all at once. So there's no, I don't think anybody would even realize that as they're looking at without the divider line, walk around, they'll notice the divisions and the change. So I think if it's consistent, let's just keep it consistent. So that's my take on it.
So, I'm sorry, are you
So what I'm trying to say is that if the existing rear facade, each facade, if there's an existing set of windows that has dividers that are going to remain, I'd rather see the addition to have the same dividers continue.
So are you...
What I'm saying is what they're proposing is I'm okay with.
Okay.
So I just went around and said I'm okay with what you're trying to do. And in the front, I don't see a problem with leaving it as the way it is. So even though it wasn't permitted, I think it was done well. The point of us, I think, being here is to make sure that the consistency and the quality of the work is as high as it can get. And walking around and looking at the building the way it was placed and all the details and the sidings, I think it was done well. So I don't think by us changing it is going to get any better. We're going to maintain the same thing. So I think, having said that, I don't have a problem with the work that is presented. I would maintain the existing window. I'm glad that you kept it, that you can reuse that, and you know, we'll just move along. That would be my take on it.
I'll go. Yeah, I agree. I would leave as a consideration to replace the river rock with the brick. I do think it would look better, but I think it's fine for them to do the stone if they want, and I agree that continuing it will help integrate it with the house more, because having such a small area of it really makes it stand out. So I would maybe make that part about continuing, make
To the
that a
entry.
condition, since they're the ones that have
And that would be
suggested doing
continuing
it.
it to the entry?
Yeah, so we can make that a condition, but we can leave a consideration for them to replace it with brick. It sounds like they're not going to, but at least that way, if they change their mind, it's in there that they don't have to come back to us. And I appreciate that they're coming forward to do all of this legally, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I agree. What was unfortunate is that it became a much larger thing. I think when, we started to look at it last time, there was questions that came up, which triggered a much more elaborate investigation. But I think it really is non-visible, the majority of it. The idea about the river rock, it is unfortunate, because I think when you extend it, there's sort of a conflict with the brick that's on the chimney, so that's kind of unfortunate. That's why I think it would be nicer if it was brick, to be a little more consistent, but it really is not visible, and if...
Mr. Geragos, we did actually, in our initial staff report, staff recommended that they change the rock to brick, which
Right.
apparently they could consider to keep it.
Yeah.
But the applicant also offered to change the chimney to river rock so they would match it. Is this something you would like to or keep as two different?
It's too much river rock. No, exactly. That's why I think the brick would be more desirable.
Brick
So,
is nice, but...
but to do more of it and be consistent, at least at the lower level, I think would be okay.
All right.
And the fact that it's not visible from the street, so I have no problem with it.
One other thing I just want to add is that I want to thank the neighbor, too, for coming, because I think it's important that we did understand what was there. So I appreciate your husband raising the issue that maybe there had been work going on, because now I feel more comfortable having had Mr. Malakian go and take the time to actually be sure that everything was being done legally. So thank you.
And I'd like to also speak in support of this project. Actually, in one of the photos, which is the front of the house, the one that addresses it, very comfortable landscaping, very inviting, and so I look forward to when you have the rooms integrated. It should be a wonderful aspect and a cheery home. But I would like to do an aside, if I may, just to all the other people tuning in, to just express the importance of talking with your contractor. No one knows the history of how these things came about or the things were built, but make sure that they know the Glendale zoning and the codes. There was a case on one of the other boards of extensive work, painstaking, expensive work that the homeowner probably was delighted with, totally illegal, and has to be removed. So, and it's just a cautionary tale, not about this case, not this one, because we're all in support of it, but just take a minute to talk to your contractor and make sure they know what you're doing before they start spending your money. So.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Didn't
Oh,
say anything.
I'm sorry.
No, but I was just ready to approve it last time until this issue came up, so I'm all for it.
Okay, should I go over the consideration and the condition quickly? All right, so consideration was made by Ms. Friedman to change the river rock to brick, but a condition was made also to whatever the stone they end up keeping to continue to the entryway. And that's all I have.
Okay, so I'll make the motion to approve with the conditions.
Second.
And second by Mr. Zarifian. Okay, this will be roll call. Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Friedman?
Yes.
Mr. Geragos?
Yes.
Mr. Zarifian?
Yes.
Chairman Malikian?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Chris, you ready?
Chair, members of the board, our next project located at 5151 Pine Hill, case number 2008-063. It's a first-time submittal of this version here. However, this is the third time the board has reviewed this project. These are the older plans, and you've seen a version of this twice. I think if you look at the elevation or perspective here, you might recognize this one. It's located up in the northern part of Glendale, all the way to the very top of Glendale. So even Markridge Road all the way to the very top. Now, when this project, which was a B submittal, or the second time reviewed by the board, when the board said return for redesign, there was a code change that required that the new one come back as a new case number. But it's the same project, so that's why I'm mentioning it. Just a quick aside. The project has not changed for the square footage. It's still basically the same thing, which is about a 500 square foot addition to the first floor and about a 650 square foot addition to the second floor. And if you look at your staff reports, I'll try to go through it briefly because you had a lot of comments that I carried over from this case number to this case number for continuity. Pretty much the same in many of the issues relating to site planning, mass and scale, design, except that the applicant addressed many of the concerns that the board had the last time. And what I'd like to do is just go through the responses to the board's comments that you had, comments and conditions, and I can go through it in more detail later. But at the last hearing, I believe there's only one person who wasn't here. I believe that may have been, I think the rest of the people were here. You weren't here either? So there was three. Okay, three of the... I'll double check that, because I know there was at least a majority here. So we have the first board comment on the July 31st meeting was raise the roof extension over the garage in order to minimize the apparent scale of the second floor. Here is the roof. The idea was to raise this up, and so this is what the applicant is proposing here, bringing it to the base. We have a condition relating to the same thing where we'd like to see a little bit of space, maybe like a 12-inch space between these two, but this was their response to that. Add a wainscot of possible wood over the living room section. We had noted the applicant replaced the entry. They did a complete different change. See, this is a solid wall here, and they decided to go with the columns. Change it up in that respect there. I replaced the wing walls, and that's what they did. So add the wainscot. So they don't have a wood wainscot over the living room section, but they do have the siding that they've placed all around the upper part of the house. A large living room window, so they increased the size of the window from the smaller version here to here. I think like maybe a foot wider over here. Raise the roof to incorporate the second floor deck, so you only see the roof and not the railings. So here you can see that this railing element was more visible, and what they've tried to do is pull the roof up so that you have less of a railing visible. And they've reduced the size of this deck here. See, the deck came all the way here, has been pulled back, and I think that's pretty visible in the plan view too. You can see here in the plan view. Consider using siding on just the upper floor, which they have done. Consider a hip roof similar to the garage at the second floor. It remains the same, but it does give a lower appearance to the second floor appears lower because they've raised that roof up. And overall, staff felt that the addition appeared consistent with the design guidelines intent for the site planning, the mass and scale, height, and the overall design for this neighborhood.
And we did have a couple of conditions. One, which I've mentioned before, is providing some space between the top of this roof and the base of those windows. And the second is the applicant, for all three submittals, has proposed a vinyl window. We're requesting that it either be, as a consideration, a fiberglass or wood windows rather than the vinyl windows. And in either case, whether it be the vinyl or the fiberglass, we want the, whatever grids they may have to be external grids on the face of the, that pretty much wraps up my comments. Questions?
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
First, the letter of support that we received, can you show me on the map where that house is in relation to this?
Sure, if you could let me see.
Sure. The address
I believe
was...
they had a previous one before,
5167.
5167.
Oh, yeah, let me see if I can see.
Here in the cul-de-sac. It's the top of the
So
cul-de-sac.
they're not they're not an adjacent property. They're up above. Secondly, in their elevation, in the rendering, what is the surround that's around the windows? Is that called out on the plan? Do we know what
Yeah,
that is?
right here. Here's a,
Okay, thanks.
yes, in fact, here's some.
So what is the material?
It's actually just a wood trim. It's here.
Okay.
Vinyl.
And do we have a garage door?
He's showing this
Just what
door
it's
here,
showing?
but no, just what he's showing it. I'm sure the applicant can address whether that's going to be the actual garage door or not. Okay, that's what his proposal is.
Thanks.
Right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
We have one card, Saroj Zafani. Well, once I close it, I mean, you can go ahead and, yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Raj Musarkani, I'm the applicant, the owner of the property. I think as Mr. Baxter mentioned, we try to address almost everything because there's a lot of comments and conditions. And I wanted to thank Ms. Friedman, as much as it wasn't pleasant to hear what she had to say, but it helped in that really a boring house to us became a much better looking house. Because what she said was, it doesn't say anything to me, and that was said a lot. Initially, as I said, one gets upset, but when you look at the plans, it really didn't say anything. It was too boring. So even the garage door looked boring. So I'll change it. I mean, because if you're changing the facade to look better, such as the wing wall, because once you change it, you realize why wing wall doesn't look good to someone who's experienced, because it's too boring. I mean, it came down to what the house was going to eventually look like. You look at our original design, it was too much. The tower and everything, it was all the stone. But frankly, with all the changes, as much as it's taken over 13 months, I think my wife and I and my daughter and my son even look and go, oh, I like this one better. So, okay.
Thank you.
But to two comments that have been mentioned in the staff report. We changed the windows to a square window in the front on the second floor because the original one was longer and we wanted to reduce the look of this tall house. And also reduced, in fact, the second floor from 9 feet to 8 feet. That unfortunately doesn't leave a whole lot of room, and we were asked to, for mass and look purposes, because it faces the street, the cul-de-sac, raise the roof. Once you do that, there's not a whole lot of wall left. And if we reduce the windows on the second floor, you'll have like a garage door. And we in fact had an old one, a quick drawing we'd done. It looked, that looked ugly. And as much as I can see, there's not a whole lot of wall left. I think the idea was to get rid of walls so it doesn't look so tall. So there's not a whole lot of room to actually move it, and I really like to have more light rather than more wall outside, just because there's not. The second comment is about the buttons on the windows. We have French windows, though vinyl around the house. I like to keep with the French style. I know what we have right now is vinyl, but I am going to be changing all the framing to wood around the house, because I think it'll be consistent since we're going to be doing it on the front. To the extent that around the house is not visible, and if I want to change it to muttons, I mean, really will be like an additional $30,000 just to change the windows because of muttons. But I do not have a problem because I think it will look good on the face of the house. We've got 3 windows, it's not too much, it won't be too expensive, to actually put raised muttons, dividers. I think it will be consistent to what probably the staff want without adding expense to have, I mean, my backyard, whether there's raised muttons or not, I don't think really matters. What I think the facade of the house is probably most important. Again, the cul-de-sac, only neighbors see it, but I think I'd like to see a nicer house from the front when I walk in rather than not. So to those extents, in addressing the 2 conditions or considerations the staff has mentioned, I'm certainly willing to go with that.
I have a couple of questions for you, if you guys have a question. Okay, so from my understanding, from looking at the plans, there are only 4 windows that are going to remain out of all the windows that you have existing.
That's not accurate. In fact, we're coming forward on the first floor, so there's 2 windows being added, one to the south side of that addition, considered a square box, to the first floor,
Okay,
and one to the front, which is visible right now on the south side of the entry door.
okay.
And then windows up on the second floor. Everything else stays. The house...
Well, there's a lot of stuff here that it's saying that it's being replaced. Okay, so the 2 windows, okay, so let me,
The first floor is in the rear, side.
you know, the side, everything that you're putting in, and the rest of the stuff, it's staying.
Everything stays.
Now, your architect has sketched up a very nice detail of what he's proposing to do, but if you're keeping the existing windows, you're not going to be able to do this. So you're going to have these attached pieces of trims that are going to get attached onto the exterior framing of it, or I don't know what, I mean, I didn't...
I'll address that. There's 2 options we have. Either one is, as Chairman mentioned, in that we will just be making the frame, because right now we've got both vinyl and some aluminum that have gone, and when we bought it, it was like that. So it's not consistent. And even a couple of wood frames just going around the window. Either we can change that and make them look good and consistent, or in fact, the windows can come out and be reused and placed into the wall back with that. But this was done to show the new windows and how, because the staff wanted to know how the windows will be, the frame and the windows will be placed, I suppose, call it with the stucco and integrated.
Thank you.
Sure.
Session's closed. Yes?
I was going to say,
We have...
Donnie, the details.
Do you have both sheets, though?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Good. He had given me some they're kind of transferable from the previous case to this one. I just wanted to make sure both
Who
sheets.
wants to go first?
I'll go ahead. After all this, I'm glad you're still a Glendale resident. It's very nice. Being jostled around. I do think it's really nice that you hung in there and did those kind of suggestions. I think it is a really attractive house now, and I think it's nice. It's a very nice addition. A couple of things, the staff, I don't know why we would want that extra space under the window. I think what we're trying to do, like you were saying, is minimize the massive second floor. So I like how they did that it did tuck up tight. There's just one tiny thing, which is they extended that little roof below the window further to the side. I guess because it didn't hit the window in front or something, but super tiny thing. I don't even want to notice it, but just a little comment. Otherwise, I think it's nice. I think if we made a condition that there's an inside piece of wood that makes the depth, and that just wouldn't be on the rest of the retrofit. It would just be the 2x4 piece that's going around the window. No, there's like an inset piece of detail. We just wouldn't do that, which I think is fine. There's no reason to change out those other windows, and to just do the external grids, on the newer section. I think completely adequate. And I think to be consistent with the vinyl, in this case, I think would be fine. So I would be happy with those ideas.
So the vinyl will be okay. If you could somebody point out what you're referring to on
If you have the
piece,
detail.
just for my own understanding?
Well, I think this detail is a problem with,
With the retrofit, it's a problem. But
well,
I'm
with
just
the
saying-
retrofit, and also there's section that they have a dining room coming into the existing wall. You got a 2x4 existing wall.
Is that where, I didn't see where that section was.
You're right here. You got it right next to the kitchen that they're attaching this. So what they're saying is that all the exterior walls that are going to be placed in will be a 2x6.
They could, they would fur the inside if they wanted to do that detail. It's not as important to me that it happens that far back, that detail. I think it's important that they do the exterior piece, not the one that does the inset, the 1x4.
You see this?
Yeah,
There's a
yeah,
2x4 and a
It will
2x6.
change there.
Yeah. They could fur that if they wanted to, but I don't think that detail is as critical when you get around the back side, especially
Yeah.
halfway down the house. But if you look on the detail, there's a 2x4 that's on the face
Right.
of the wall, so we would just do that at the retrofit,
Right here?
and not the 1x4. See the little
Is that
1x4?
the
You just wouldn't do that on the
Do
retrofit
that
areas.
one, just do that
On the retrofit.
on the retrofit.
Yeah.
But they would do this on the new one.
On
But
the
how
new
would
section.
you, if they have a vinyl window, the vinyl windows have their own vinyl frame.
Right, that's what he's showing on there. That's why there's the extra, that's why he's doing
Right,
2x4
but
frame.
what I'm saying is that vinyl windows out here, and then they have these trims that are coming out to, do we
Right,
have
but-
picture
but
all
that piece
around?
is, he's showing it go over the brown coat, so that would be on top of that
So
anyway.
how are they going to remove the trim around the existing vinyl windows? That's what I'm trying, if it's
They're not going to
integrated
remove the
into
trim.
one
They're not going to, they're just going to apply the 2x4
2x4 over the vinyl trim? that they
over
have?
the edge, just like it's, oh, let me just.
No, I'm talking about the existing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, the details.
Okay.
I think it would be, see, he's saying it's going over the brown coat. This is going over the brown.
No, I completely understand that.
Yeah, so the flange is happening under here.
But what
on
I'm
the window
saying
trim.
is that vinyl has its own already vinyl trim that it's integrated with the windows. So if they tear that out to put this in, it's going to rip the...
I would say just apply it over the top of it. That trim piece is flush to the brown coat, so the wood of applique could go right on top of it. It could go on top.
I understand.
The vinyl is flush to the brown coat. This is going on
See
top of
this?
the brown coat.
See how it is?
Yeah, but I think with the 2x4, they could go, well, first of all, this is the north side.
This front window, that won't be there.
Yeah, that won't be here.
So what they're going to have is they're going to have this trim, and the 2x or the 1x is going to get attached to the side of it, so that the trim of the
He's
existing
calling
vinyl...
out,
Well, that's...
he's calling out a 2x on the face, Joe. And the 1x is here.
Okay. Here's the thing. You got a vinyl window that has this trim that comes around.
Right.
Okay, and then the window sits in here, and I'll put this up so you can see it. And then the stucco is, this is the frame and this is the stucco.
Right.
So what that's going to do is, they can't cut this, I'm saying, and they can't put it on. So what they need to do is they need to attach it to the side of this.
But doesn't it, can't you remove this?
I don't think you
believe
can.
it comes
Can you?
Probably you can.
I don't think you can.
If it's,
But that's the whole purpose of this retrofit. is
Yeah,
putting it in.
in looking, we spent a fair amount of time looking at the vinyl windows and how they're constructed. There are essentially three types of vinyl windows that we've seen. One called that we refer to as a Z-frame, which has that trim that is typically flush with the face of the stucco. And I don't have the photo in front of me, but it sounds like the existing condition has that Z-frame. I think that if that were cut, it would likely impact the waterproofing and
Right.
absolutely void the warranty. It remains to be seen how wise it would be to attach something, because I think anything that would penetrate it might make the waterproofing, I don't know how that would impact the waterproofing if you actually penetrated it with a trim that gets applied to it. I believe Board Member Chair Malekian is probably correct in suggesting that any trim would have to go outside the perimeter of that Z-frame.
Yeah, I agree. I think the conflict for me is that the picture, one of the pictures you're showing actually shows it flush to the...
Well, this one, what this is a retrofit. So
Yeah, exactly. I agree that would go on top.
Yeah, but
this
what
one,
they have...
yeah, this one I think would be fine. It's small enough that if you put the piece next to it, I think it would be attractive.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
that's
So
fine.
you're going to have two different details. So you're going to have one that is there, and
That one I don't...
so my question is, now that we've solved that, my question is, do you want to see that detail, that trim added to the existing vinyl windows?
Oh, you mean not do it at all? I would rather apply it next to the other one,
Make it a
make
larger
it a
trim?
detail. Because I think in reality, what they're doing on the front here, by doing the one-by, is trying to make that a more substantial detail, the inside. So I think you're going to have this on the new portion, and the retrofits will just be a piece that's right there. So I think they're consistent that way. I mean, and they don't happen on the same facade, so it doesn't bother me.
Okay, you guys worked that one out? We all set? Okay.
On the as I was saying, the retrofit has only the 2-by and omits the 1-by. You don't do this insert for the retrofit.
Just taking down.
2-by and not...
Not the 1-by on the retrofit. The 2-by is
Front will be...
just on the retrofit. It'll be the rest that's used on the...
All right, so vinyl is okay, retrofit only has a 2-by...
Well, just me. That was just me. So.
Oh, okay, well, but I'm putting your comment down. because
Yeah,
you were-
thank you. Okay.
And then the retro...
You're clear on that, Chris?
That's right, as clear as...
South.
I can be.
South.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for the feedback. That was very kind of you. I appreciate it. Okay, I agree. I think it's a nicer application. I think it's going to be a nice addition to the neighborhood. I have just a few little things. I will trust the two architects to deal with the window situation and be sure that we get the best windows here that we can in this application, because you've gone over my head. You've gone over my head. My one question for the board is, I think that the siding on the second floor is nice. I wonder if there should be some introduced somewhere on the first floor. So that was my first question, just so that it has some reference. My second question is, I'm a little concerned with the front door program, because it seems to be fiberglass in the front, and I just want to be sure that it's a nice quality front door. And ditto with the garage. So I'm not sure what the garage would be, but again, I think it should be a nice quality garage as opposed to, a vinyl or a fiberglass. So those are really my concerns, just to be sure that, so that we're sure that the materials are up to the design of the house and to the neighborhood and everything else. Now, I was reminded again going up there, what an incredibly beautiful block it is, backing right up. Is that Demagian right behind you? Or is it, yes, very nice, very lucky.
I have one question from the board. I'd like to know what you guys think. As I was looking at this perspective, I felt that the top, for two reasons, felt kind of almost shearing from the ground floor somehow. And I realized that this piece that comes out is actually projects outside of the garage wall.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's a weight almost coming down on it.
See it up on the top right.
Yeah, you can see on the top right. I wonder if that's necessary. I mean, it's like part of the master bedroom, but how much difference it might make?
There's a...
It's like flying mass over a light roof. It has a sort of a conflict of weight to me. Then I agree with you in terms of somehow only the top separating itself by a different material. It feels like it's almost too separated, but I couldn't figure out how to kind of fix that. it might be that maybe that if you eliminate one, it might look better.
Well, there is another solution there. I don't know if the bed is supposed to go there or something. I don't see the layout, but what it can do is, if you look at the elevation, you can see this line already. So what would happen if it actually, this section comes down, so this roof carries over, and this becomes more of a bay window element there? That becomes, on the side, the roof is a little bit lower. You still have that niche, and then you can see that carrying over, the top.
So you mean shape it and put a window there?
No, what I'm saying is just take this, lower it maybe a foot or two, so that you have two separate roofs there. You have a shed roof kind of a thing, and then you have
I think it's the base that kind of coming down on this eave looks kind of odd.
But if you lower this, you can see this carrying over, and this becomes just an attachment. But again, it's something you guys can
I'd like to
decide
ask
on.
the applicant how important it is for them to.
Come on.
Yes. Open the
Well, if you could introduce myself, Saroj Masarkani again. That extension or extrusion occurred because in initial hearing, everyone, members of the board, did not like the fact that there was a straight wall up, and that was what was facing my neighbor to the north, and the house looked too straight up, and they suggested that. So that is based on suggestion from the board. Now, in terms of how it can be manipulated, I think as we talk, we can sort of work it up and work it up. I'm just asking so that we come to some sort of a cutoff point, because there's good ideas. I mean, we can work this to an end, but the bottom, as the perspective, as good as it can be, it is not exact. It doesn't go on top of the roof skirt there. It ends before.
No, I know.
I thought it looked a little different.
The wall below, so it feels like it's beyond where it can come down as something that has weight to it on an extension of a roof.
Well, I think it was sort of the one point I had, which was that the roof gets extended to the side more on the front in order to kind of encapsulate that piece. But I'd rather actually see the roof back a little bit and then put brackets under it and just treat it as an extension as a separate piece. So, I mean, it's a small element, it's on the side, I don't know.
It sounds like what you're saying, if we, let's say, and I'm not saying we're going to do this, but if we said that we preferred the straight wall, that if we could pass it with that as a condition, that wouldn't be...
Is that a hardship?
Is that a hardship for you?
Ask now not to, because we ended up moving the front of the house back. We lost so much. Already it becomes a master bedroom that's really narrow. With that extension, we got back a bit of the room, which was quite a bit, but because we moved eventually almost 4 feet back from the initial. We went about 2 and then another 2. So our master bedroom got kind of smaller and smaller. That gives us a little bit of room, and we figured the way we extended in terms of the width is that the bed can actually move in there and become be hugged by the extension of the wall.
I think breaking up the wall is good. That doesn't...
Can I ask you one other question since you're up here? I'm just curious. The 2 windows on the second floor, were they together as opposed to apart for a reason that has to do with some program on the inside of the room?
Well, because we didn't have a whole lot of room in order to put things up, although it is not that much, to me, I would have thought that there would be, but then I was explained by the architect that if we move, we don't have a whole lot of room to put things on the corners, which is what you have. Let's say another maybe half a foot apart to have something in between. I would personally like it a little more, because there seems to be one single window rather than 2 windows. But that was the idea why. So in case you have dressers that are a little larger than normal, then you really don't have a whole lot of room, because that break on this side and then windows on the south side, really you don't have any room to put anything, let's say a desk or something. That was, I think, their idea, and I don't mind. Remember also that we've shrunk the foot from the top, so we don't have a whole lot of sitting room. So if you put a desk, it may just actually show from the window. So you kind of go to the side and hide it behind the wall. but I wouldn't mind, I mean, if there's room, I wouldn't mind actually a little bit of a separation.
Yeah.
Because it looks like it's one, but it isn't. It's just too little of a space. That's more of a, I guess, I'm not sure of the taste, but it's how it looks. I think it will look better. Aesthetics.
Yes, I agree. That's why I asked. So maybe we can just make it a consideration. That way it'll leave it open to you down the road if you decide you want to move them apart, that you'll have the ability to.
Yeah.
I would just like to thank the Mizrakhani family for bearing with us over these months. And just to review my participation, as I did the drive-by, you know, I look at a property like this, and because it's an elevated lot over its neighbor, you say, you know, how is it going to impact the neighbor below and the neighbor above? And those were not real heavy considerations as the project turned out. So the thing shifted to mostly design elements, and we're again talking very specific design elements. But and the major one, the entryway, you addressed quickly and efficiently, and I appreciate that because I think, and it's our opinion, that it presents a nicer front to the street, and I hope that you concur with that.
Actually, I was going to say thank you, and I do, because it looks so much better after the wing walls were gone. It's like you got sunshine coming in now.
Okay.
I mean, there was a big difference.
So, just to reiterate, this project was about specific design things, and I thank you, and I'm ready to move approval.
I have a couple of
things.
If you can just go ahead and sit down and close it, and I'll give you some thoughts, and if it's consideration, and let it be consideration. If it's actual condition, let it be a condition. So, that extension doesn't bother me. I think it's fine. I think there is a solution for it. The one that I mentioned, there's one more solution, and I think it would work. I'm not sure about your setbacks, but if you do carry that little pop-out down to the garage level and create that as a niche for your storage or something, then that wall carries down straight. And so you have this line actually carrying all the way down, so you don't have this overhang. So I think that solves that problem by having you actually drawn the pop out there. So I think the setback shouldn't be a problem, if Chris can check on that. Yes, sir. That could be a solution, that's a consideration, so you can carry that.
Good idea.
Actually, it's a very good thing.
So let it be a condition. The second thing for me, I think, first of all, I really like the evolution of what we're seeing. So I think it definitely evolved towards better. I agree about the siding, and I think some of the siding should be carried down below rather than having complete solid plaster and the siding above. I think there is a place that I think we can make this thing work, is that this section right here has a perfect location because it's tucked in. You know, you have this recessed section, you have this wall. So this little section can have a siding kind of in a corner, so you have this siding condition here that represents part of the upstairs, and that brings it down. And that brings me to the second point. I think proportionally, the wall that you have, and also, I don't know if you've noticed, the function you have behind the window, I think the scale of that window in relation to the wall, and for that, I think that's another thing that is kind of bothering me. So I think if we can reduce that a little bit, proportionally that window will fit much better in that wall. I think it needs to be a picture window rather than one large window, and I think it definitely will work. And whatever you do on this window, if we decide, was that?
That was the request.
That was a request last time.
To a bigger window.
Well, I wasn't here, so I can say whatever I want. So you guys deal with it. But I think it definitely, if you look at the proportion of this wall and the window, the size of the window, I think proportionally, I think it's large. And you have a bar there that is going over the bar, and it definitely tells you there's something wrong with that window. So I think proportionally, I would like to see it a little bit, and that's a consideration. So let the board decide on that. This definitely is not the proportion I'm talking. I think it should be just a tad bit shorter and then more of a square look, I think I'm looking for than anything else. But
it does match the windows on the second floor, which is kind of nice.
Yes, but the proportion of this window versus what we're looking at, I think it fits better than this versus all of that. That's my opinion. So you guys can kill it if you want. The other thing that if you look at the perspective, I think the top is really slender, and the columns are very thin, carrying that. It seems like you can just take your hand and just kind of knock it off. So I think by adding a little bit of a mass here, just a tad bit, I mean, the way that it's drawn, it's fine, but when you look at the perspective, you really can't see the top part of the column. And I think at the bottom of this, I would consider adding or fattening this base and then bringing it back towards the wall. So you have this some sort of a base, a substantial base, and that even can be a stone or brick or siding or whatever it is that you're carrying it through. So I think that, but you still have this open. I'm not talking about, just a small little base down here. I think it would give a lot better presence on that entrance rather than what you had originally versus what you have now. I think it's the complete difference. I would also add fiberglass instead of, so you can paint that, and also the dividers should be outside of the glass, and only in the front where it's visible from the street.
What about the front door?
Front door I'm okay with. I would also have them consider using a more of a quality garage door than just to paint it to match the stucco. I think it needs to have a little bit of a contrast there.
Can we ask them about, I think your idea of the placement of the siding, I think is a really good one because it balances it too. Where you have the siding on the second floor kind of on the right, and then if you add it to the left, it really balances the two pieces together. But I wanted to ask them if they had any strong feelings against it, because otherwise that would make it a...
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Can you come back up again for the last time, I think? That's fine. Did you have any... Did you have any feelings about that? Because I think it's a really good idea.
Once again, since I'm required to mention, my name is Rosemar Sarkani. Actually, I don't mind it at all because we thought about the idea we were going to not to make it all siding.
Mm-hmm, right.
Even though the entire second floor we made siding because it just looked better rather than having the half-way stop. But on the first floor, because there's not a whole lot of wall, that was our problem. If you put it, and that's the only place you can actually put it and make it work, but then there's no more stucco kind of left, which is fine.
And that's what you want. You don't want to have a siding that comes and ends right on you don't want it to end in the middle of the wall. You don't want this to carry in middle of the wall. Right now, it will start at a intersection of the wall and die into another wall. So it's a perfect location to create or add a detail. Now, the siding has already been used, so carry that down so it kind of balances the top.
One suggestion in what Mr. Malakian said, instead of going all the way to, because we will be blocking kind of with a short bush and brush, because remember, we're almost 15 feet above our neighbor to the south. And so, but we'll have a living room window. In order for us not to be able looking down to their front parking or porch, we'll be having some bushes. From going from south-north, you won't be seeing much of that south wall. How would you feel if your wife is okay, do siding on the side? Because she wasn't very crazy about it, but when we did the top, it looked good. We looked around the neighbors, and they'd done 2 or 3 new projects with this cement fiber, really nice, kind of thinner, not the old kind of, looked really good. So when we did it, it looked good. So I think even on the side it will look good, but not go all the way around, because then it looks like we've kind of completely done with siding. But then again, if you wrap it all the way around, it should be.
I think if you end at the corner, I don't think it's going to look good. And I think I'm saving you some money by having you put siding
Instead of
rather than stucco. So you should be happy doing a stucco than siding rather than a stucco.
Would you mind if you make it a consideration in terms of, because if we do it, we will go all the way. But I do agree that it's like a, dark pants, light shirt, you're split in half.
Right.
So somehow we'll have to mix them.
We need to have the board members speak now.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I thought I wanted to say that I agree, but I just don't know how.
No, on the same note, I think this left side being siding somehow doesn't look enough to me. If you bring down that volume of the master bedroom as siding all the way down.
Right, absolutely.
So it kind of frames the stucco of the front.
Right.
Then I think maybe
So you're saying instead of the left side,
No.
or the both?
you do this part, but then bring this down as siding. So this
to wrap it
stucco
around.
is framed.
So
To wrap around.
just that pop-out is siding all the way
Like
down?
a picture frame.
Not the
Because
rest?
that's what
Yeah,
we
it
will.
comes down as something that frames the front
Oh,
stuff.
definitely.
I think it creates probably a better view because it does frame the stucco in front.
Yeah, because otherwise there's only one side kind of, you don't know.
That's what I was a little worried
Yeah.
about. There'll be one-sided, lopsided kind of
I think
view.
it definitely will help, yeah. Okay.
So Chris,
Thank you.
did you understand that comment? You want to show him on?
Here,
Yes, my only concern, I just want to make sure,
you got 6 feet.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, see, we have 9 feet to this point here, so I want to make sure whatever that pop-up,
Yeah, that's less
But
than-
what,
we'll
is
have
it an
6 feet.
R1R? Is it
No,
R1?
no, it's R1, so it's 6 feet.
Okay.
We had the setback anyway, because you already had it there.
One last consideration. The peach color of the stucco, I've never talked about colors, but I think the peach color is something that, consider changing that to something a lot more earthier and warm, not
More like the
peach.
other two colors?
I think you should use the same kind of in the same family of the.
Well, the color you have in the perspective is...
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I think this color is fine. I don't.
The plaster you're showing in the
The
perspective.
lighter color is fine. It's just the peach here, the way that it's.
Yeah.
It's too much red.
It's just too much.
It's too much red, it should be
More like
cooler.
the perspective.
Yeah.
Like the perspective.
So, the only, those are great suggestions. The one that I would make, I think, a condition is to continue the pop-up all the way down and to put the siding going all the way down the pop-up.
very nice.
I think that the rest of it, I would go either way. I'll leave it up to the board about the other part being siding. I think it would look nicer, but I'll leave it to you guys as to whether you want to make that a...
I think it will work better if both sides.
Okay.
I think so.
So let's make both of those conditions, especially since they're amenable. I think it's going to be beautiful. And
Any thoughts about reducing the size of the window?
I think it's unfortunate to reduce it. I know there's an issue about the barn back, but I do think making it smaller is not the way to go.
we can make it a consideration and we'll
Yeah.
leave it up to them.
I just really think that wall with the window is just too big.
Not changing.
This is almost a revolution at this point.
There was there was a concern mentioned about the material of the garage door and the front door, and in checking the plans, it appears that it's not clear what that material is, so you may want to consider making a condition of what the material might be, what you would like to see.
Well, Mr. Chairman of the board, you all did say use a quality garage door. I don't know what that means, but maybe staff look at it?
You know, I have a suggestion in the interest of using more siding. I think adding the windows on top of the garage door is a nice thing, but the old sort of horizontal lines will kind of work better with the general siding horizontality. You know, if you look at the old garage door, it's kind of simple kind of line.
Yeah, I'll fight you on that one. I'll fight you.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I just don't know where this is coming from. Kind of in the, if I look at the general.
So you like the windows, but you like to be more
No, the
horizontal.
windows. Yeah, but if this is more
You don't like the
horizontal,
divided-
with same
divided-
color, not changing it to that color, but but I think it will read better with the rest of the...
Wait, so you're saying no windows, or that there's no
No, the
panels?
windows are fine.
Windows,
Windows are fine, but not panels.
Keep the windows, but remove the vertical.
That's
They're
kind
just
of foreign
sec-
to the
just the
to the
horizontal.
general,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it wants to be simpler, because...
I think sometimes they
windows are
come
the-
like that, though. I don't know if they make a panel,
No, they...
a raised, they make a raised panel without the vertical?
They
Okay.
can make this exactly like that with
Okay.
windows. But, you
So
know...
that it's one panel, on the one section
No,
is
just
one panel?
horizontal kind of line.
Just lines?
No
okay.
vertical
Because
line.
I think when you look at the elevation, the windows will come out better if this wasn't there.
Okay.
The reason that we're asking is because the way it's drawn looks like it may be maybe shown as a more typical aluminum roll-up door, and if the board would like to see something else, they may want to specify.
No, I think the one that I talked about is the roll-up that goes up
Sectional.
horizontal.
Sectional.
Sectional, yeah, not roll-up, no, sectional.
Sectional.
But smaller section.
Right, the sectional that kind of rolls up.
Rolls and
Right.
goes up.
But regarding the material,
It's our other
if
option, going with wood.
would be another option.
Yeah, I don't think that's...
No.
I don't think it's,
No.
I think it's fine.
But I would agree, let's make it a condition that it not have the vertical elements. You want to read, can you read
I
back?
can go through and he will.
And there were some considerations on the, or
What about the front door?
Yes,
Did you
well,
have a comment about that too?
front door's fine.
I'm not, I just wasn't clear what it was, because when I look at this, and there's a lot of different materials, and it's talking about different sections of the door, I'm just not sure which door out of all of these, I think it's this one,
It's
but
the
I
one with the
can't
red
tell.
around it.
The front door does not appear to be specifically noted as what material it is.
He does have a brochure here.
Right, but the brochure, I was a little
Calls it off
confused.
as a... I remember the applicant mentioning that wood, the first door he submitted was wood, but one we talked about, there was some real cost considerations with that wood. And this is less so what he's submitting here, but it had a look that
Well,
was...
the one that it's been highlighted, it says premium steel or fiberglass. I guess.
But that's what it said. That was initially with our initial submission. Since then, we've chosen a fiberglass. It's actually almost $4,000 door.
Fiberglass door?
It's it is fiberglass, but it's unfinished and it's grained like wood. So when you paint it, it has the look of wood, and it's kind of solidly made. I mean, I can't understand why a door is $4,000, but so it's an expensive door, but it's not wood. Once painted, it really looks like wood. You can't tell really the difference. And of course, it's a kind of halfway up with French partitions. But it's real partition, by the way. It's not just
Yeah, I think it's adequate.
Okay,
We'll just
and you're
change
painting
it.
it that dark color that you show on the,
kind of a reddish.
okay. Well, I'll take your word for it. For $4,000, it better look good.
It better paint itself.
Okay, so can you read back?
All right, I'll give it a whirl and be glad for any help, but I have many conditions here. So one of them is that the existing vinyl windows are acceptable. These retrofit with the 2 buys versus the 1 buys, I'll try to work that out with Stephanie on the more detail, but I also have your drawing that you have. I have a note here to use a quality garage door. Remove the vertical raised panel on the garage door. I have, as a consideration, to separate that master bedroom window at the north elevation. I have...
That was it was a consideration.
In the pop-out,
You like it like this?
in the pop-out, so I just have it as a consideration. I have used external fiberglass windows for the, the new windows shall be fiberglass, have external muttons.
They're exposed at the street.
Yes, excuse me, yes, that's what that, for me, that's what that means. The other one is pull the second floor pop-out, master bedroom pop-out, down to the first floor and continue the siding from the second floor down to the first floor.
On the pop-up only.
Yes, on the pop-out only. Add siding to the east and south walls of the living room. That's the one Mr. Miller.
And is that a condition or a consideration?
I have it
I'm
as
still
a
not sure.
condition. I have it add as a condition, add siding as a condition, just like add siding to the pop-out on the first floor. I do have a consider the height of that living room window, make it more of a proportionate, make it more proportionate. I don't know whether you all want to, I see a lot of shaking heads there. Is that a majority of shaking heads?
If it's a consideration,
If
that
it's a
just leaves it up to them. So
At the bottom of the list of considerations.
Compromising, you guys should compromise.
making it a consideration is
I
fine.
have it as a
doesn't-
consideration.
It's just in
Is that
case,
acceptable?
it doesn't
Okay.
mean you have to do it. It just means
Yeah.
if you decide to do it, you're able to. That's all.
Write it in
The
grade.
front entry
Oh,
column.
yes,
and,
that's my next one, sir, and yeah, I may need a little help here. What I wrote was consider a larger crown and base for the porch, columns, and add and this is where I was going to say some type of a base connecting the column to the face of the house, something like, I'm not sure what kind, but,
That's fine.
okay. Let me just finish that little thought there real quick. And then I have, consider using, not consider, use the plaster color in the perspective. Each color. That would
Or
be-
any earth tone that goes with their palette.
Okay, or earth tone, Works with the palette. That was my comments.
And then we would also add, since it's not clear on the plans, that the entry doors to be fiberglass with three-dimensional mullions in a deep red color.
Okay. Because I believe they have that in that detail there, but we'll add that as a...
Do you have a motion?
Front door to be a...
I make that motion.
So we have a motion by Mr. Garagos.
I would, no, you said it first. You said it first.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Zarabian is second. Zarabian, I apologize. Okay, so we have a motion, and this is for approved with conditions. Roll call would be Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Friedman?
Yes.
Mr. Garagos?
Yes.
Mr. Zarifian?
Yes.
And Mr. Milliken?
Yes.
So it would be 5-0 approved with conditions.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Drive safely.
We got my son's birthday, so
Very good.
Good, thank
Okay,
you.
bye-bye.
Thank you.
We have two sets of minutes to approve tonight, November 6th and November 20th of this year.
Yes, I saw those. Yes.
On November 6th, I will not vote on, I was absent. So you guys need to let me know.
Absent on the other one.
Does anyone have any comments?
I didn't have any.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I would second that motion.
Okay, a motion was made to approve the November 6th minutes. This will be a roll call. Ms. Friedman?
Yes?
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Geragos?
Yes.
Mr. Malikian?
No, it was absent.
Absent.
Okay, Mr. Zarifian?
Yes.
And November 20th, I read it, everything is fine.
The 20th, yeah, you were there, we were, Laura was gone. Well, I would move acceptance of the minutes of Thursday, November 20th,
All right.
2008.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion was made to approve the minutes of November 20th of this year. Roll call, Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Geragos?
Yes.
Ms. Friedman?
I was absent, so I'll abstain.
Okay. Mr. Zarifian?
No, I was absent.
You were absent as
There were
well.
only three.
Okay. And Mr. Malikian?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0. Thanks.
Okay. items on the agenda, or?
No, there are not.
Okay, then I think this is it for this year, right?
You are correct.
Okay.
Yes, and the only staff announcement that we have is to have a wonderful holiday.
Same
And
to
thank
you.
you for your service this year. We'll look forward to seeing you next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Are we off the air?